Today we're going to learn how to make an ice spear attack. Hello and welcome to how to create a Vampire Survivors clone in Godot 4. So the first thing we are going to be doing is fixing our enemy spawner because we made a mistake. I'll just post a image of the comment where we really shouldn't be loading our enemy resource path a second time. As it turns out, when we have a scene in an array, it's already loaded. So why are we loading it a second time? No reason. We're just wasting resources. So we're just going to do that, and we should get the exact same functionality. So we're just going to be fixing that little mistake there. And it works. Okay, so now for the rest of the tutorial. So, to create our ice spear, we're going to go into empty, other nodes, and we're going to be creating a new area 2D, and I'm just going to call this ice spear. I'm just going to get my reference script up, and we are going to, I'm just going to do a Control S, going to go into the player, create a new folder, call it attack, and this is where we're going to save the ice spear here. So we're going to add a collision shape. I'm also going to add a sprite, just so you see what it's going to look like. And I'm going to type in ice spear here, and oops, I'm going to add the ice spear to the ice spear to the sprite, and then we're going to be adding a collision shape. So I'm just going to go into the rotation, do -45 just to get that, and then I'm just going to be stretching this out so it's the same shape as the ice spear. All pretty simple. The other thing I'm going to be doing is making that so this is going to be an attack. It's effectively going to be a hitbox, which means it should be on the enemy layer because we want this to interact with the enemy hurt box. On top of that, we're also going to go into group and add this to an attack. I'm also going to be adding a timer, as well as a sound variable, so a audio variable. If I can spell it right, audio variable. So we're going to be doing an audio stream player because we don't want any directional influence. And we'll get to that later. I'm just going to rename that to sound play. Okay, so now we've set all that up. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to add a script. Just going to be doing all the good standard stuff, and we're going to be adding a bunch of variables. Var level equals 1, that's going to be the level of the ice spear. Var HP equals 1, this is going to be the amount of hits the ice spear can take before being removed. The speed is going to be 100 because we want this to be fast. Our damage is going to be 5. Our knockback amount is going to be 100. We're not going to use this in this tutorial, but we will use it later. And our var attack size is going to equal 1.0. And then we're going to be getting a target. So we need a target to shoot our ice spear at. So we're just going to initialize this as a vector 0. And then we're also going to need to get an angle, which is going to be another vector2.0. And then we're just going to be doing an onReady var player equals get tree dot get first node in group player because we just need to get the player, and that's all good. So within our ready function, which is on the first frame, we're going to be setting our angle to the global position. And we're going to be taking our global position. We're going to be doing our direction to the target. So whatever our target is, we're going to be directing our angle to that. And then we're just going to be setting the rotation. And the rotation is going to equal angle dot angle, which effectively it just returns a vector from a radian. so it's a little bit different, and plus deg2rad 135. So this is going to be done entirely in radians. We'll go through it in theory time since it's a bit hard to explain on the fly. And then we're just going to match the level. This is just going to be initializing how things work. So we're going to be setting our HP to 1, our speed to 100, our damage to 5, our knockback amount to 100, and our attack size to 1.0. So we do want to level this ice spear up eventually, but it's just not going to be part of this. Oh, I need to do level 1. There we go. But it's just not going to be part of this tutorial really. And then we're going to have a physics process. So every physics frame, we are going to alter the position. And we are going to plus equal our angle times our angle times our speed times delta. So we're actually using delta because we're not using a physics process since this is a area. So we actually do need to use delta in this. And that is all pretty cool. I'm just going to preemptively create a function called enemy hit. We're going to have charge equals 1, HP minus equals charge, and if HP equals less than 0, we're going to Q3 our ice spear. So this is going to be pretty much when the ice spear hits an enemy, it's going to reduce its HP by 1, and if the HP goes below 0, we're going to Q3 it. So this is actually all the code we need for our ice spear. Now, on top of that though, we should actually do something with the timer. So this timer is just going to be a time where the ice spear naturally removes, because if your ice spear misses an enemy, it's going to be flying off the screen forever. So I'm just going to set this as an auto start, one shot. I'm going to let this blast for, let's just blast it for 10 seconds, and then kind of like after 10 seconds, we're just going to Q3 it. All simple stuff like that, and this just means that the ice spear will not continue to fly across the stage if it isn't able to hit anything. So the next thing we need to do is actually spawn the ice spears. So we're going to be going to our player, and we're going to be creating a node 2D, which is just going to hold our attack. So I'm just going to call this attack. And then I am going to be adding 2 timers. We're going to be adding 1 timer, which is just going to be ice spear timer. And then we're going to be adding another timer, which is going to be called ice spear attack timer. And I'm just going to be adding some variables, and there are going to be quite a few variables that we're going to have to add. So I'm just going to add some comments just so we can more easily reference them in the future. So ice spear is going to equal preload, and we're going to load our ice spear here as a preloaded scene. And then we're going to be getting our attack nodes. And we'll do onReady var. I'm going to make these access as unique scenes so we can access them via the get node method. So ice spear timer equals get node ice spear timer onReady var ice spear attack timer equals get node and we want percentage sign ice spear attack timer, and we'll change that and to a percentage sign, so it is actually correct. And then we're going to have to add some nodes specifically for the some variables for this, specifically for the ice spear. So we got ice spear underscore ammo, that's going to equal 0. For ice spear base ammo, we'll make that equal 1. Ice spear attack speed equals 1.5, and var ice spear level, which will equal 1. And then I'm going to be adding another variable, and this is going to be for something else, which we're going to use later, called enemy close. And this is just going to be tracking all the enemies that are close towards us. Okay, so there's been a fair bit. What are we going to do now? Well, we are going to go into, we're going to create a ready function just so we have an initial frame, and we're going to be creating a new function called attack. And I'm just going to be creating our attack function. And we want to call this attack at the start. And what this attack is going to do is it's just going to check if ice spear level is greater than 0, ice spear timer dot wait time is going to equal the ice spear attack speed. And if the timer is not running, ice spear timer dot is stopped. It's not running, we are going to start it. So ice spear timer dot start. Pretty simple. And now we're going to have to connect our timeout functions, and this is going to be these two, and they're going to do two completely different things. So in our ice spear timer, we're going to increase the ice spear ammo. So ice spear ammo is going to plus equal ice spear base ammo. And then we're going to start our ice spear attack timer. So I'm just going to set like the defaults to this. So this is going to be 1.5 seconds. And this attack timer is going to be 0.075 seconds. So this is going to run 20 times the same time this runs once. And we'll kind of do some showcases of what this actually does. So think of this as loading your ammunition, and think of the attack timer as shooting a machine gun. So if ice spear ammo is greater than 0, we're going to do ice spear var ice spear attack. What did I call it again? Ice spear. Oh no, ice spear attack equals ice spear dot instantiate. We're then going to be setting the position of the ice spear attack, and we're going to be using position rather than global position because it's all relevant to its parent, which is the player. So we can just use position. It works completely fine. And then we're going to be setting our ice spear attack dot target, and this is going to equal a function called get random target, which is a player made function. So we have to make this get random target, and we're just going to pass on that for the moment and get back to it at a later point. Then we're going to be setting the ice spear attack dot level, and this is going to equal the ice spear level. And then finally, we are going to add the child. Ice spear attack. Ice spear attack. There we go. And then we are going to reduce the ammo by 1. And we're going to check if ice spear ammo is greater than 0. We're going to start the ice spear attack timer again. Dot start. Otherwise, we're just going to make sure it stops. So ice spear attack timer dot stop. Now, for the get random target, we're going to have to create a new node. So this is going to be an area node. And I'm going to be calling this enemy detection area. And we're going to be adding a collision shape to this. And we're going to be adding a big circle. So this is going to be our collision shape. It's going to be quite big, and I want to scan everything that is on the camera. So I'm going to drag this out until we can see the corners. And this is going to be our enemy collision shape. Now, I am going to make it so that this is only monitoring. So I'm just going to turn off monitorable. And I am also just going to add this to the mask. Well, but I need to actually collect, and then we're just going to add some signals, which is a body entered as well as a body exited. So we need to detect the enemies on this. So, and add this to our enemy close function. So if not enemy close dot has body. So if it has the body that is entered, we are going to append it. So enemy close dot append body. And if the enemy close dot has the body when it exits, we're going to be doing enemy close dot erase body. Now we're doing body rather than area, which means we have to go back into our enemy kobold, and I am just going to add it to the layers here. All easy and simple. So now our enemy will connect with our enemy detection. So that's part of this done. Now we can get to the get random target. So if enemy close dot size, so that's the enemies we add with this function, is greater than 0, we are going to return enemy close dot pick random, because we want to pick a random value in the array, and we want to return its global position. Now, if this doesn't return, now if we don't actually have anything there, I'm just going to be setting the, I'm just going to make the return vector2 dot up. Just going to make it so that it shoots up where it needs to, just so we have just so it has something to move towards. And that's kind of it from that perspective. So now if we play, let's see if this works. We can already kind of see that, oh, we can see it kind of not working, moving with the player, and that means we need to set this as top level, which is invisibility, and this just makes sure that it's like separate. After you spawn it, it's separate from the player. So we can now see that it's kind of moving where the player is, and it's all pretty good. it kills the enemies, it moves past them because there's some built-in functions with how everything works and stuff. But it's not despawning after a single hit. So there's a couple more things that we need to actually do. And I believe that this is all within the hit box. I mean the hurt box. So we're going to go into our hurt box. And on top of emitting a hurt signal, we're going to be checking if the area has the method of enemy hit. And if it does, we're going to be doing area.enemy hit, and we're going to be returning a 1. So that should be good. And this is just going to be running this. And now whenever we shoot an ice spear, it should shoot it at, yeah, you can see now it hits a kobold and it disappears. So there are a couple more things that we need to do for our ice spear to officially consider it done. And so we're just going to go back, and I am going to add a sound, which is the ice wav. It's a bit loud, so I'm just going to reduce the sound. It's also a bit long, so I'm just going to set the pitch scale to 5. And I think that's a good sound. So I'm going to set that to autoplay, so now whenever we shoot an ice spear, like, that's a pretty good sound. I think that's good. Now, the other thing we're going to be doing is tweening. And I want the ice spear to be small at the start and large at the end. So I'm going to be creating a var tween equals create tween. And tween is just a way of animating projects. So I'll just show you how it works. You create a tween. You then call that tween and you tween a property. And you declare it on itself, which will be the ice spear. You set what you want to change, which is going to be the scale, which is this value right here. You set the value you want to set this to. So I'm going to set this to what it currently is, 1, 1. And I'm just going to multiply that by the attack size in case we want to change the attack size later. And then you set the amount of time it takes, which is 1 second. And then you can set something called set trans, which is sort of like, it's kind of just how it works. I'm going to set this to trans quint. I can't really explain it off the top of my head, but I can explain easing. Easing just kind of shows you like the speed of where it, of how it animates. So tween dot ease out. Now we're going to be scaling this from vector 1.1 to 1.1 over 1 second, and that's a bit dumb. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to 0.1. And now it's tiny, but it will get big once we play it. So I'll just do a tween.play. And now when we play, we get a sound and we get that small animation. And that is pretty much how you create the ice spear attack. Now, there are a couple of things that you can do. We can set the HP variable to like 2, which means it should pass through like 1 kobold, but not 2. So we'll just see as they come back. So it passes through 1. So we got, it passes through 1. And then it despawns. And in addition to this, we can go to our player and we can just increase the base ammo. So if we wanted to increase this to 5, for example, we'll shoot 5. So kind of like that. So it's kind of like a machine gun fire ability, which is all pretty cool. And you can kind of see how it can get pretty powerful after that. But I believe that's everything we need to do for the ice spear. I will be doing a lot of talking in theory time because a lot happened in this episode. So if you don't understand what's going on, we'll get to it there. Bye. Tweens are a great way to alter your node's properties in an animated-like fashion, especially when you're dynamically calculating what you want your node to be altered to. If coming over from Godot 3, you may notice that tweens are no longer a node and are instead something that needs to be created in code. The primary way of using tweens is to create a tween first using create_tween, then calling the tween_property function of the tween. In the function's arguments, you set the node that you want to change, you set the name of the value you want to change, set the value you want it to be, and finally set the time it will take for the tween to complete. Afterwards, you call the play function and you have a functioning tween. If you add additional tween properties, they will run one after another. If you want them to run at the same time, you can use the set_parallel_true function when creating the tween. And if you want to separate them again, you just use .chain before calling the tween property. If you want something to happen like a function being called after a tween ends, you can use the tween_callback function where you make a callable on a node and then link it to an existing function. You can also set the transition type and the ease type. The transition type and the ease type sort of play into each other. The ease type defines whether the tween is going to be front-loaded, back-loaded, or if it's going to bounce in between the two. The transition type is simply how strong these ease types are going to be. In the following image, you can see that the trans type of sign has a significantly lower impact of the ease type than the transition type of quint. In our case, the ice spear scaling is going to be extremely front-loaded, but if we change the trans type to sign, it would be less front-loaded. I personally wouldn't think too hard about the transition types. I just think of it like this: sign for light easing, cubic for moderate easing, and quint for serious easing. So let's start with the player. To begin, we created an Area 2D node that will detect all enemy bodies that get near the player. If the body enters and is not in our enemy_close array, then we add the body. If the enemy leaves the area or gets queue-freed, we remove it from the list. This is used in our get_random_target function, which will get a random enemy from the list and return its global position. If the array has no enemies, we just return a vector2 up value, so we at the very least return a value. In order to spawn our ice spears, we set up two timers. One acts like a reload and will run once every 1.5 seconds. The other will act like pulling the trigger and runs every 0.075 seconds. In our attack function that we call at the very start of the game with _ready, we check if the ice spear _level variable is greater than 0. If it is, we set the reload timer to our our ice spear _attack speed variable, which is the same as the default 1.5 seconds for the moment, but we may want to change it later on. Afterwards, we check if the timer is stopped, and if it is, we start the reload timer. After the reload timer occurs, we load the ammo with the base _ammo variable and start the attack timer. Every 0.075 seconds, the attack timer will check if there is any ammo left. And if there is, we instantiate an ice spear scene. We set the position to the player's position. We set the target to get_random_target's return value, which will be an enemy's global position. We set the level to what our player's ice spear _level is, and then we add the child to spawn the ice spear. We then subtract one ammo from the ice spear and check if we have ammo again. If we do, the attack timer is started again, and if not, we stop the timer. In the ice spear scene, we set our angle to a vector 2 value by comparing the global position of the ice spear to the target. This will return as a vector 2, where the x and y values are between 1 and -1 to simulate an angle. We set the rotation of the spear by getting the angle and turning it into radians, and then adding an additional amount of radians, which are converted from 135 degrees. We do this because the ice spear is facing -45 degrees, and adding 135 degrees makes it face rightwards, in other words, vector 1x, 0y, which just means that we have adjusted for the sprite facing -45 degrees, and now the angle.angle function actually faces towards the enemy. After that, we check the level of the spear and set some values like HP, speed, and damage. We then create a tween that will transform the ice spear from a default 0.1 scale to a 1 scale in 1 second. In the physics process, we move the ice spear by adding the vector 2 from the angle, multiplied by the speed, which is then multiplied by delta so we can handle drops in frame rate. There is a 10-second timer to determine the life of the ice spear with Q3. This is so that it just doesn't fly on forever if it misses an enemy. A function to reduce the HP of the ice spear is called every time the ice spear hits an enemy. If the HP value hits 0, then the ice spear gets deleted with Q3. This isn't called from the ice spear, but instead from the hurt box, where if the ice spear ever enters a hurt box, the enemy hit method will be called.
Say hello to my little friend!